For more on the Bank of Japan's decision and Japan's economy, we're joined by current affairs commentator Einar Tangen. Einar, thanks for being with us.
Hi, Rochelle.
Einar, so the Bank of Japan disappointing investors on Friday by offering a far smaller than expected round of extra stimulus. The BOJ did double its annual purchase target of Japanese exchange-traded funds to 57 billion. Einar, that was not seen as enough. What were the markets expecting?
Well, the markets are expecting something. Unfortunately, this will be the year that the limits of fiscal and monetary policy are reached. A lot of people feel that they're buying time at this point until they come up with some new strategy. And all directions point to something where it would either be helicopter money, literally money being dropped down to try to stimulate the economy, or a large infrastructure spending program, but both of them are going to depend probably on printing money.
All right, Einar, you said they were expecting something dramatic, and that is what the BOJ had delivered. So what happened to Kuroda's whatever it takes policy? You mentioned helicopter money. Is this what it's come to? Has the BOJ now practically reached the limit of its monetary policy and has just run out of tools?
It's not only Japan, but I mean, they're the worst example of this. They've been basically trying to do the same thing and expecting a different result for quite some time. I mean, this is an economy that has been moving sideways from 1993. They have had no growth. During that same period of time, China has grown 20 times. So they're desperate to do something, but it hasn't been working. The set of the 3 arrows that Shinzo Abe said were going to be part of this new Japan economic revival have failed to deliver. Instead, the yen is going up. Deflation is plaguing everything. Real wages continue to be flat. Very, very disappointing.
Well, one of the moves that the BOJ took, which was quite dramatic, was implementing those negative interest rates earlier this year. As you mentioned, that hasn't helped. The yen hasn't weakened, and inflation is not hitting the 2% target. It's done anything of value.
No, I think the world is coming around to the idea that this negative interest rate doesn't. You cannot force people to invest their money if they don't see an opportunity. Let's put it this way. If I have a lot of money, but I don't feel confident investing, but I borrow it anyways thinking that I can, what happens later when I have to pay that money back, assuming the economy comes back? It's a disaster in the making. And it's kind of like drinking now to avoid a hangover later. You cannot, at some point, you have to stop drinking and face reality.
And I know we've seen this being executed by several central banks around the world, and it is giving people cause for concern. Now, let's talk about this review that the BOJ has ordered, a review of the impact of the easing program and the negative interest rate policy ahead of the next meeting. What does this signal?
As I said earlier, this is buying time. They're going to do something dramatic. It's probably going to be this helicopter money approach. They really, I mean, this is a country that's at 230% of GDP in terms of their debt. They're running an annual deficit of 6% of their GDP. Desperation has really set in. Shinzo Abe was reelected with a large landslide, but he's run out of options. One of the issues that's coming to the forefront is the ability of democracies to deal with structural issues when they only have fiscal and monetary stimulus as in their toolbox.
So, Einar, you say helicopter money. If it does come down to that, how is it being played out effectively?
Well, they're going to try to put it in the hands of the consumers. I don't know if it's going to be a tax rebate, a temporary one, or some sort of form of incentivizing it out there. They're looking at this kind of option. They're also trying to figure out how they're going to dig themselves out. The thing they do is supposedly going to be very sharp, try to get the economy going, but it's not really working. If you start looking at the fundamentals of the Japanese economy, you'll notice a couple of things. Their service industry has been stagnant over the period that we've been talking about since 1992. It has not grown at the same rate that you've seen it grow in China, US, and EU. They're really lagging in this area. Also, manufacturing, no one wants to set up more factories in there. Occasionally you hear about 1 or 2 being set up. The vast majority of of Japanese businesses are setting up their factories overseas in order to be competitive. Japan is just no longer competitive. And with an aging population, right, and the kind of issues that they're facing, lower unemployment, there really isn't the capacity to do the kinds of stimulus programs that you could do, for instance, in China.
Yes, certainly facing many headwinds. Meanwhile, earlier this week, Prime Minister Abe announcing a $265 billion stimulus package. Einar, very quickly, what are your expectations there?
The problem with stimulus packages is they're not shovel ready. That means that there's a lot of planning that has to go into it. It takes a long lead time for these kinds of projects to get forward. So you're looking at a year or so before you really feel the impact. All right. Thanks so much, as always, for your insight, current affairs commentator Einar Tangen.